There's a certain kind of man who understands that women fall for connection long before they fall for touch. He knows that if he can make you feel seen, if he can make you believe that he understands you in a way no one else ever has, the rest will follow effortlessly. So he doesn't begin with compliments or grand gestures. He begins with curiosity. He listens, or at least he appears to. He asks questions that make you lower your guard. He nods at the right moments, maintains eye contact, and mirrors your emotions like a perfectly tuned reflection. You start to feel an intimacy that seems rare, as if you've stumbled into something genuine. But what's really happening is a psychological mirage, one designed to create the illusion of emotional depth. This illusion works because it feels so real. When a man seems vulnerable, when he shares fragments of pain, past heartbreaks, or insecurities, it awakens your empathy. You lean closer, emotionally and energetically. You think, this man is open, he's real, he trusts me. But what if that openness isn't truth, but performance? What if that carefully timed confession is part of a script designed to earn your trust faster than honesty ever could? It's not that every man who opens up early is deceitful, but the manipulative ones understand that vulnerability is the fastest way to bypass your caution. They use the language of intimacy to gain emotional access. He studies your responses, how your tone changes when he talks about family, how your eyes light up when he mentions loyalty, how your breathing shifts when he says he's never met someone who gets him like you do. These micro reactions guide him. Every word, every pause, every sigh becomes data. He builds the version of himself that you most want to see. It's not the real him. It's a mirror image of your own emotional blueprint. You're not falling for him. You're falling for the reflection of your desires projected back at you with precision. This illusion of depth feels intoxicating because it speaks directly to your emotional intelligence. You think you've finally met someone who matches your emotional rhythm, someone who feels with the same intensity you do. That sense of being understood releases oxytocin, the bonding hormone in your brain. It's the same chemical that deepens trust. That tells you this connection is safe, that it's worth exploring. The manipulator understands this chemistry better than most. He doesn't chase your body first. He chases your mind because he knows once your emotions are engaged, your logic will soften. In the beginning, everything feels reciprocal. You share, he shares. You reveal, he comforts. You mention your past, and he echoes his. It feels like a dance, synchronized, effortless. But if you look closer, you'll notice something subtle. The timing of his vulnerability always follows yours. His emotions are reactive, not authentic. They are strategically placed to deepen your trust right when you're most open. This is the illusion of emotional intimacy, an emotional fast-forward button that makes you feel like you've known him forever. You begin to confuse intensity with connection. You mistake emotional familiarity for compatibility. You start to think this is rare, that this must mean something. And that's exactly where the illusion hooks you deepest. Because when you believe you've found something profound, you start to justify things that don't align. You overlook inconsistencies, dismiss red flags, and silence your intuition in the name of what feels like love. But love isn't built on performance. It's built on consistency. And what looks like soul-level connection at first might just be a well-practiced performance of emotional depth designed to pull you closer before you even realize you've lost your scent of flattery. In its purest form, can be beautiful. It's the recognition of someone's essence, a verbal mirror reflecting their light. But when flattery becomes a weapon, it loses all beauty and turns into something calculated. Some men understand that words can disarm faster than any touch. They know that the right compliment at the right time can open emotional doors that logic would keep closed. So they don't just compliment your looks, they target your identity. They tell you you're different, that there's something about you they can't quite explain, that you're not like other women. Those words sound harmless, even sweet. but they carry intent. They're not always meant to honor you. Sometimes they're meant to hook you. The flattery trap works because it feeds an ancient part of our psychology, the need to feel seen, valued, and chosen. When someone says you're special, it triggers a deep emotional validation loop. You begin to feel not just admired, but understood. It touches your self-worth in a delicate place. The part that wonders if you're enough, the part that longs for recognition beyond the surface. The man playing this game understands that flattery creates emotional reciprocity. You feel good around him, so you begin to associate him with that feeling. That's when attachment starts to form quietly, invisibly. He doesn't compliment everyone. That's part of the illusion. His attention feels selective, exclusive, like you're the only one he sees. This exclusivity builds intensity. Suddenly, you find yourself wanting to live up to his perception of you. When he says you're confident, you try harder to appear confident. When he calls you captivating, you start to play the role of the woman he's describing. The trap deepens when you unconsciously start performing for his praise, chasing the validation he provides. What began as flattery becomes a form of subtle control. You begin to crave his approval the way you crave air after holding your breath too long. What's dangerous about this kind of manipulation is that it hides behind kindness. You don't see it coming because it doesn't feel wrong. It feels warm, exciting, affirming. And yet, behind the compliments, there's often an agenda. Once he senses that his praise has gained your trust, he uses it to blur the lines between emotional and physical intimacy. He'll say things like, "I've never felt this drawn to anyone before," or "There's just something magnetic about you." The subtext isn't affection, it's persuasion. He's leading you into a space where desire feels like destiny, where attraction feels like connection. The flattery doesn't stop there. When you hesitate, when your intuition whispers caution, he'll double down. He'll reassure you that you're safe, that he respects you, that he's different from the rest. And because he's already made you feel so valued, you want to believe him. You want the story he's selling to be true. But flattery as manipulation is like sugar, coated poison. It tastes sweet, but it dulls your awareness. It teaches you to depend on his words for self-assurance. And once that dependency forms, it's easier for him to guide your decisions, your emotions, even your boundaries. You begin to notice that the compliments feel rehearsed, that they're always a little too perfect, a little too soon. But by then, you're already invested. You've internalized the image he painted of you, and walking away feels like losing a part of yourself. That's how this mind game works, by using your own longing for appreciation against you. What starts as admiration slowly becomes manipulation disguised as love's language, turning genuine validation into a silent negotiation for your attention, your trust, and eventually, your surrender. The urgency game is one of the most seductive psychological tricks because it feeds on our natural fear of loss. It's the illusion of time running out, the sense that something rare and magical is happening and that hesitation might ruin it. A man who plays this game doesn't necessarily ask directly, he suggests. He creates a rhythm of intensity, fast, emotional, consuming. So you feel as if waiting would mean losing him, losing the spark, losing the connection that feels electric. It sounds like, "I've never felt this way before," or "I can't stop thinking about you," or "You make me feel alive in a way no one else ever has." Those words aren't just confessions. They're tools. They create a pace that's faster than comfort, faster than clarity, faster than the truth can catch up. The urgency isn't always physical. Sometimes it's emotional, an invitation to jump into something that feels too good to question. He may talk about the future in the language of now. Why wait? Let's live in the moment. Life is short. These phrases are disguised as passion, but their real purpose is to make you skip the step of reflection. When you're swept up in intensity, you stop observing. You stop noticing the inconsistencies. You stop listening to the quiet voice inside that says, Something feels rushed. The manipulator understands this. He thrives in momentum because momentum keeps you from grounding. This urgency often feels intoxicating because it mirrors what love stories have taught us. That great love happens suddenly, that it's unstoppable. That logic doesn't belong in romance. And so when he creates this emotional speed, you mistake it for destiny. You tell yourself, maybe this is how love is supposed to feel. That's where the game succeeds. It replaces discernment with adrenaline. You're no longer choosing, you're reacting. Every moment becomes a test of whether you'll surrender to the story or resist it. He'll use words like chemistry and connection, as if they are proof of something permanent. He'll insist that the intensity between you is undeniable, that it's something neither of you can control. The more you feel, the more he pushes. He might tell you that thinking too much will ruin what's real, that your hesitation means you're scared, that real love requires risk. These statements sound romantic, but they're designed to shame your boundaries, to make your caution look like fear instead of wisdom. By questioning your resistance, he's not just hurrying the pace, he's conditioning you to ignore your own instincts. The real danger of this game is that it blurs the difference between passion and pressure. You start confusing the rush of adrenaline for emotional depth. The more he accelerates the connection, the more you mistake chaos for chemistry. You tell yourself that maybe he's just confident, maybe he knows what he wants, but in reality, what he wants is control. The faster things move, the less time you have to see clearly, the less space you have to decide freely. He'll use silence strategically too, pulling back for a moment just to reignite the urgency when he returns. The inconsistency keeps you off balance. You start anticipating his messages, his attention, his affection, as if missing a beat would mean losing everything. It's the same psychology used in high-stakes persuasion: create pressure, amplify emotion, and limit time. Once you believe that the connection is fleeting, you'll rush to secure it, often at the cost of your boundaries. You start to feel as though you're being swept away, and in a sense, you are, not by love, but by manipulation disguised as passion. The urgency game thrives on your willingness to trust the moment more than your intuition. It keeps you suspended between desire and doubt, caught in a whirlwind that feels too intense to question and too fragile to slow down. There's a particular power in a man who knows how to wear pain like a disguise. The victim narrative is one of the oldest and most deceptive mind games because it doesn't come wrapped in dominance or charm. It comes clothed in vulnerability. He doesn't try to impress you by being strong. He draws you in by appearing broken. He tells stories about the woman who betrayed him, about the relationship that scarred him, about how he gave his all and got nothing in return. His tone is soft, wounded, believable. You feel empathy stir in your chest. You want to show him that not all women are like the one who hurt him. You want to be the exception that heals what others destroyed. That's exactly where the manipulation begins. Not through seduction, but through sympathy. When a man plays the victim, he's not seeking healing, he's seeking power through pity. He knows that when you start to feel protective of him, your boundaries soften. You stop seeing him as someone who could hurt you and start seeing him as someone who needs you. He creates a dynamic where your nurturing instinct becomes the very thing he controls. You start taking emotional responsibility for his well-being. You listen, you comfort, you reassure him that you're different, and slowly, without realizing it, you start proving your loyalty to a man who hasn't earned it. He's not earning trust. He's extracting it through your compassion. The victim narrative works because it activates a deep psychological reflex, the caregiver impulse. Most women, when faced with emotional pain, respond with empathy and understanding. The manipulative man weaponizes this goodness. He crafts stories that make you feel like saving him will restore your own faith in love. He'll say things like, "I've just been so hurt. I don't know how to open up anymore," or "You make me feel safe for the first time in years." Those words sound sincere, but they're often rehearsed lines designed to accelerate intimacy. By sharing emotional pain prematurely, he manufactures closeness. It's not built through mutual trust, it's built through selective confession. He paints his ex as the villain and himself as the misunderstood hero. You start to feel lucky that he chose to open up to you, that you're the one he finally trusts again. This illusion of exclusivity deepens your investment. You become emotionally entangled in his healing story, believing that your care can rewrite his past. The more you comfort him, the more he rewards you with appreciation and attention, until you realize that his vulnerability never leads to growth. It only leads to dependence. He doesn't actually want to move on from his pain. He wants to use it to keep you anchored. What makes this game so dangerous is that it blurs your awareness of imbalance. You begin to excuse his emotional unavailability because of his trauma. You forgive neglect, inconsistency, even disrespect, because you believe he's just scared. You start saying things like, "He's not ready," or "He's just been through a lot." But if you look closely, you'll see that his pain only shows up when it benefits him, when he needs forgiveness, when he wants attention, or when he senses you pulling away. It's selective suffering designed to keep your empathy alive and your boundaries asleep. He uses his sadness as a shield, so you won't question him, so you won't demand more, so you'll keep giving while expecting less. He knows that as long as you see him as broken, you won't see him as responsible. And that's the essence of this manipulation. It's not about love or connection, it's about emotional leverage. He learns how to use your kindness against you, turning your compassion into compliance, making you mistake pity for partnership, and healing for attachment. The future faker is a master of illusion. He doesn't win you with who he is, he wins you with who he promises to be. He paints dreams so vivid that you can almost taste them. And he does it early, long before trust or consistency have a chance to prove themselves. He tells you about the trips you'll take together, the way he imagines waking up beside you every morning, the family you might build, the adventures you'll share. He makes it sound effortless, as though your story has already been written, and all you need to do is step into it. The words spill out like poetry, perfectly timed, perfectly romantic. You feel chosen, seen, destined for something grand. But in truth, you're not experiencing the relationship, you're experiencing a preview of a fantasy he has no intention of delivering. The psychology behind this game is simple yet powerful. When someone talks about the future in vivid emotional detail, your brain doesn't always separate imagination from reality. You start bonding not just to who he is now, but to who you believe he will become. You invest emotionally in a vision. You start acting as though that future already exists. You excuse his absences, his inconsistencies, his half-hearted effort, because you've already built the mental picture of what's coming. You're not holding on to him. You're holding on to the promise. That's the brilliance of the future faker's design. He doesn't have to give you the real thing when he can sell you the illusion of it. In the beginning, it feels intoxicating. He's confident, expressive, open about his desires. He uses phrases like, "when we travel together," or "when we move in," or "when I introduce you to my friends." Those small linguistic choices bypass skepticism and make you feel secure. They create a false sense of progress. You start believing that the relationship is moving forward, that it's building towards something real. But if you look closely, you'll notice that all his visions exist in the future, never in the present. His actions rarely match his words. He'll talk about a weekend getaway, but never set a date. He'll tell you how much he wants to see you, but he's always too busy. He'll promise stability, but keep things undefined. His commitment lives in conversation, not in consistency. This type of manipulation thrives on your hope. The more you want to believe, the more you'll fill in the gaps he leaves. You start rationalizing. You tell yourself he's busy, that timing is off, that he just needs space to get things in order. Hope becomes your leash. You keep waiting for the moment when his promises finally take shape, and he knows it. Every time you start pulling away, he revives the fantasy. A few romantic words, a glimpse of the dream, a reminder of what could be. That's how he resets your emotional clock. You go back to believing that he just needs a little more time, that the story will unfold exactly as he described. What makes this game so hard to escape is that it's built on beauty. The dreams he sells are everything you've ever wanted. They're tender, exciting, full of love and belonging. Walking away doesn't feel like losing him. It feels like losing the life you imagined together. That's why the future faker's promises cut deeper than lies. Because they're not just deceitful, they're hopeful. They make you fall in love with a version of life that doesn't exist. And by the time you realize it, you've already invested your heart, your patience, and your belief into something that was never meant to be real. The promises weren't mistakes or exaggerations. They were intentional threads in a story designed to bind you through anticipation rather than truth, through potential rather than presence, and through fantasy rather than love. The withdrawal test is one of the most confusing and emotionally destabilizing games a man can play because it disguises itself as unpredictability, when in truth, it's a calculated strategy. It begins after he's already built a connection. After he's made you feel safe, desired, and chosen. He's attentive, consistent, emotionally available, and just when you start to relax into the rhythm of it, he pulls away. Suddenly, his messages slow down, his tone changes, his energy feels distant. The warmth that once surrounded you begins to cool, and you find yourself wondering what went wrong. This shift doesn't happen by accident. It's deliberate, designed to test the depth of your attachment and measure how much of your emotional control he possesses. At first, you rationalize it. You tell yourself he's busy, tired, or stressed. You replay every conversation, every moment, searching for the thing you might have done to cause his retreat. You reach out to check in, to reassure, to reconnect. That's the reaction he's waiting for. Because when you start chasing his attention, he knows he's succeeded in changing the balance of power. Before, he was the one pursuing, investing, and initiating. Now, the dynamic shifts. You start doing the emotional labor he used to do, trying to win back the closeness he intentionally withdrew. The manipulator doesn't just crave your affection, he craves control over it. By giving and taking his attention unpredictably, he trains your mind to crave his validation more intensely than before. This game works on the same psychological principles as intermittent reinforcement, the same mechanism used in addiction cycles. When rewards become unpredictable, they become more powerful. When affection and attention are given inconsistently, the brain starts to chase them obsessively. You never know when the next message will come, when the next moment of tenderness will appear, so you stay emotionally on edge, trying harder, investing more, clinging tighter. The highs become euphoric, the lows unbearable. You begin to equate the return of his affection with relief, not joy. That's when you've been conditioned. You're no longer responding to love, you're responding to withdrawal relief. The withdrawal test also exposes your insecurities. It forces you into self-doubt. You start questioning your worth, your desirability, your behavior. You ask yourself, was I too much, too emotional, too available? Instead of recognizing his inconsistency, you turn the spotlight inward, assuming the problem lies in you, and he lets you. Sometimes he even feeds into it subtly, with vague comments like, I just needed space, or I felt like things were getting intense. These phrases keep you apologetic and compliant. They make you believe that emotional closeness was the problem, not his manipulation. Then, just as you begin to pull back to protect yourself, he returns, his charm reignites, his messages resume, his warmth floods back. You feel relieved, maybe even grateful. You tell yourself that things are back to normal, that whatever happened was just a misunderstanding. But this cycle of withdrawal and return isn't reconciliation, it's reinforcement. Each time he comes back, Your brain associates his reappearance with emotional safety, making you even more dependent on him. It's the emotional equivalent of teaching you that pain is the price of connection, that inconsistency is just part of love's rhythm. Over time, you find yourself stuck in a pattern you never consented to, always waiting, always hoping, always trying to earn what should have been freely given. The withdrawal test turns love into pursuit, turning your peace into a reward he controls. It's not affection anymore, it's conditioning. The silence becomes his power, and your effort becomes his proof that the game is working. He's not confused, and he's not overwhelmed. He's watching to see how far you'll bend before you break, how much of yourself you'll lose just to bring back the version of him that never truly existed